The Brooklyn Nets entered the offseason in one of the most enviable positions a rebuilding team can have. Multiple draft picks, a ton of cap space, and several tradable players. Emerging from the fallout of yet another failed super team, the Nets were finally in control of their own future. Following the 26 and 56 season, the Nets had three important decisions to make. Who are you drafting? What are you using all that cap space on? And what are you doing with the Cams? With a talented young coach and endless possibilities before them, the Nets had the foundation for a strong rebuild if they could nail this offseason. So, how did they already screw it up? Brooklyn's favorable situation meant the NBA's collective glare was uncharacteristically focused on them. In the past, Brooklyn had to make league-changing trades or signings to get that kind of attention. But now, everyone is waiting to see how they would play their hand. After watching Houston draft Reed Sheppard 3rd overall with their pick last season, Brooklyn moved mountains to get their 2025 pick back. The move was costly, but with generational talents available, the Nets didn't want to be sitting on the sidelines again. The Mikal Bridges trade returned multiple picks as well, meaning the Nets entered the draft armed with 4 first-round picks and movable salaries they could use to really shake up the draft. After a devastating draft lottery result left Brooklyn with the 8th overall pick, many expected in the package multiple picks to move up in the draft order. So when the first 7 picks of the draft went as expected, and Brooklyn was called upon to make their selection, nobody was ready for what happened next.
Brooklyn Nets select Egor from Moscow.
Oh my God.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so the Brooklyn Nets have selected Egor Demon.
What?
Egor Demon is an interesting prospect, a 6'10 guard with real vision and passing chops. He impressed early on in the college season before regressing against stronger competition. As a result, his draft stock slid, making Brooklyn's decision to draft him 8th a substantial reach. Taking your guy early is not necessarily a bad thing. I'm sure the Nets scouted him heavily and are very happy with the choice. But whenever you reach for a prospect, questions will always arise if you could have traded back and taken the same player later while getting an extra asset from a team interested in jumping up. Whether deserved or not, the Demon selection will be judged against the 3 to 4 players drafted directly after him. Add the harsh reality that the pick used on Demon cost Brooklyn the 10th pick, which was used on Kaman Malawak, a 2027 Phoenix pick, and 2 2029 swaps. I wish the best for Demon, but this pick has the potential to age very, very poorly. With the dust settled on the Demon pick, the Nets then drafted 4 more players. They did this by using some of their cap space to take on Terrence Mann's contract for the 22nd pick, and by the end of the evening, the Nets had 5 new rookies. And to be honest, I think they missed on every pick. The Nets had entered the night with multiple picks, and left with multiple question marks. Drafting 4 guards and a big who plays like a guard is an interesting approach to team building to say the least. And beyond the draft picks, the Nets still had unfinished business to take care of this offseason. Cam Johnson was the obvious odd man out for the direction the Nets were taking. A competent two-way player was too good to keep on the floor during tanking efforts. Cam represented a golden opportunity for the Nets. His archetype is desired by every finals hopeful. A quintessential 3-and-D player can often be the final piece on a contender. So when you have one on a very team-friendly contract, you should be at least able to get a young player and a good pick back in a trade. After deciding to keep him around on draft night, many thought the Nets might have a better deal lined up. What they ultimately did, however, still confuses me to this day.
Malika, we have a major trade for Nikola Jokic's Denver Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. is being sent to the Brooklyn Nets.
On July 8th, the Nets traded Johnson to the Denver Nuggets for Michael Porter Jr. and a 2031 first, and in the process, added $17 million to their cap sheet. On the surface, it's not a horrible deal. Porter Jr. is 27, which is 2 years younger than Cam Johnson, and a 2031 Denver first is a bet against Nikola Jokic playing into his age 36 season. Personally, I expect the Joker to play well into his late 30s, as his game isn't particularly hard on his body, and I don't really buy the nonchalant gimmick, but I don't blame those who disagree. The issue for me with this trade is surrendering the cap space for a player that will cause the exact same problems Cam did for the rebuild process, only at double the financial burden. If the goal is to truly bottom out for the 2026 draft, which it should be, bringing in a championship level player makes no sense, especially when that player is Michael Porter Jr. Personally, I have nothing against MPJ. But lately, he's been on quite the off-season media run.
Think about if you could get all your homies rich by telling them, yo, $10,000 on my under, this one game I'm gonna act like I got an injury and I'm gonna sit out. I'm gonna come out after 3 minutes. Everybody has different vices. Everybody has different things that they struggle with. My brother, for example, struggled with gambling. My vice has always come in the form of women.
On his podcast and others, it seems he spent the offseason thinking about anything but basketball. And this is always my concern when a rebuilding team brings in a player who's been competing for championships most of his career. The propensity to take his foot off the gas is considerable. And if any of Jokic's other former teammates are indicative of MPJ's future performance, then Brooklyn just took on a declining asset. My favorite team has suffered through two former Nuggets in Will Barton and Bruce Brown. And I can say firsthand that Jokic elevates players beyond their typical capabilities. Brooklyn reportedly thinks MPJ has been pigeonholed in Denver and could blossom as a number one option. The numbers, however, say the opposite. In 22 games without Jokic, his point per game declines to just 15, and his true shooting percentage drops from 63 to 53.5. For Brooklyn's sake, I hope I'm wrong, but I can't help but feel like they fumbled the Cam Johnson trade. The evaporating cap space caused by the MPJ acquisition, something that was once a strength for Brooklyn entering the offseason, has set into motion one of the more awkward contract negotiations this offseason. 23-year-old Cam Thomas has led Brooklyn in scoring for the last two seasons. The former 27th overall has averaged 23 3-3 since becoming Brooklyn's go-to scorer. He's young and talented, but he's not a perfect player. His defensive effort is sporadic, and he leaves a lot to desire as a playmaker, which is problematic for a ball-dominant player. Unable to previously come to terms on a contract extension, Cam entered the offseason as a RFA and maintains that status 127 days later. Cam's expectation of an extension versus the reality of what Brooklyn is willing to offer is night and day. The likely resolution as of right now is that Cam Thomas accepts his qualifying offer and walks the next offseason for nothing. With all his flaws, Cam is still the standout shot creator in Brooklyn's offense. They really don't have anyone like him, and Brooklyn's other moves this offseason made the exiling of Thomas even more confusing. Demon is a talented table setter, as is Traore, and Michael Porter Jr. has built his career being an off-ball threat. So they've added passing talent and finishing talent with their other moves, and they fail to see how there's not a spot for a bucket getter. I understand Brooklyn's hesitation to lock in an imperfect player on a big contract. The NBA is largely moving away from scoring-focused combo guards as a whole, but Cam Thomas feels he's much more than that. Now, after diving into his past and his statistical trends, I'm inclined to believe him. Last season, Cam averaged a career-high 3.8 assists per game. He's actually been trending upward as a passer his whole career. And I want to reiterate something here. The Nets just said they believe in a 27-year-old who has never averaged over 2.5 assists per game to be the focal point of their offense. So writing off the 23-year-old Thomas is a little crazy to me. At this point, the relationship is so strained, I'd be shocked if it came to a positive conclusion. Their other offseason moves include waiving Ben Simmons and taking Hayward Highsmith aboard for a second-round pick swap. Neither are that big of a deal or problematic in any way. As it stands, the Nets have added 5 perplexing rookies, an NBA champion they hope to miscast as a number one option, and ostracize their leading scorer who they will lose for nothing in 12 months. What was once an offseason full of potential is now looking like a crash course on how to minimize the value of your assets. This season will be the most important season Brooklyn has had in some time. Leaving next year's draft with anything but a top 4 talent might deem Brooklyn a mediocrity for the rest of the 2020s. Losing enough games will actually be challenging for Brooklyn. With a talented head coach in Jordi Fernandez and enough competent players to win at least 20 games, they'll be at the mercy of their lottery gods, and Brooklyn is picked in the top 10 just once in the last 15 years. It might be too early to judge the Nets offseason, but if prior performance is an indicator, I wouldn't hold my breath.